Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, this is something that got Have and I thinking. Are we about to see Beerus do something nice that has nothing to do with food, destroying things, or being a downright meanie to everybody just because? Well, stick around for this one, because we are in the opinion that we are about to see something very cool in regards to the cool kitty cat. Him being happy for once. Presently, all seems to be good. All is well in the movie world of Dragon Ball. At least for our heroes. Dragon Ball Super Superhero may not be setting the box office register alight with its takings, but in terms of the plot and its premise, it's number one. Gohan and Piccolo have closed the gap between themselves and the heavy hitter Saiyans. Vegeta has finally beaten Goku in a meaningful manner. Yeah, it wasn't a sparring match, but this was a battle with no buffs, nothing like that. Pure grit won out. Pan learned to fly, again. Goten and Trunks have finally aged up, putting to bed years of lamentations from the fandom and confusion, providing in-world explanations for the first time as to why it took them so darn long to grow taller. But what about Broly? What's his lot in life right now? Was he just there for fan service's sake? Probably, but wait a second, Sovereigns. As you can probably tell, we are quite excited with what Superhero has offered us storytellers. We have discovered a lot of stuff related to the movie, such as why Dr. Hedo is probably the smartest character in the series now, smarter than Bulma. Why Cell Max is the biggest and best boy for the final act of the movie. But up to now we have omitted one important thing from our discussions. Something that we saw properly in the post-credit scene that sparked something deep within us. Something that took us very much by surprise after we stepped back and rewatched it. At first, it was a cute little gag, but now, after thinking about it for a little bit, this was quite telling. Why was Broly, and well, Lemo too, crying after the Vegeta and Goku fight? Why does he care? Really, Masako? Is that it? Surely it was just a gag, right? Not so, my friend, because in all the excitement over the revelations of Big Orange and Beast Boy, we had glossed over one crucial character development that happened right at the end. Does Broly finally give a toss about fighting? After having previously voiced his disapproval and disinclination towards fighting post his movie? What might be the consequences of this for the future? Let's discuss, because I think it's very, very clear that whatever movie we're going to be getting next, it's going to involve Broly in a big capacity, and the Saiyans. So yeah, after having a whole movie dedicated to himself and his establishment within the Dragon Team and in the main timeline, Broly's role in Superhero was slightly limited. He was relegated to being a minor character to some degree. The biggest thing to point out though is that, as supposed in the last outing, he is indeed learning how to control his latent power so he doesn't fly off the handle again and doesn't need some kind of technical inhibitor. But it's not like this is anything new though. We knew this would happen really, it was very, very clear in the open-ended ending. You honestly think that Broly would never be seen again though? Come on, he's a full fat Saiyan. He brought in 127 million in the box office, of course he's going to be there. But in fact, the boy is doing quite well at the moment aside from all of that. Aside from his training and controlling of his energies. He has friends alongside him, along with two new buddies and mentors in Goku and Vegeta. And although Beerus is initially reluctant to have Broly and his friends around, Cheelai and Lemo quickly ingratiate themselves with he. And yeah, he then says that they can stay. Without doing much on screen, Broly has managed to come on leaps and bounds. We all thought that he would remain on Vampa before we saw this movie, just hanging out with Cheelai and Lemo, calling the world their home properly, no one would interfere. We didn't anticipate that he would relocate to Beerus' planet and be encouraged to stay there, instead of just training there and then going back to Vampa again. This is quite a big deal, and very big of Beerus to actually go along with this. And not for nothing, but we do learn some interesting stuff about Beerus as well, with him not doing much either. It's all to do with how he behaves, as well as the minor interactions that he has with characters. Sometimes that's enough to get your point across, because for starters, we realise that he is not, as we thought, an asexual godly being. That he still has certain urges or attractions. Now, this is both a twist and yet not a twist. We could have thought about it before, but we didn't really have much to go on. But when we do compare him to other destroyers, especially Belmod in the manga, who, let's say, gets around, Beerus has been relatively indifferent towards the concept of love, lust, and the like. As far as we could tell, the only thing he loved truly was destroying stuff and food. Relatively one-dimensional. But now we know a little more. But what does this mean? Well, it fleshes out Beerus a little more, makes him a little more mortal. We must remind ourselves, folks, that at some point in history, Beerus was mortal too, with mortal wants and needs. And despite being granted destroyer powers and immortality, so that means he can do his job, it is fascinating to see that not every faculty of typical organic life has departed from him. But maybe it could have been handled a little less, creepily, perhaps, towards Cheelai, you know? It would have been nice if it was actually mutual, instead of... Ugh. Also, not for nothing, and something that makes the last point a little bit easier to swallow, and actually expands upon it, but we see the cat god showing genuine kindness to people. People such as Lemo, who you think would really have nothing to do with Beerus, but there is a little interaction that they have where Beerus is telling him that, oh, you can do the dishes later. Why don't you instead come and watch the proceedings, right? That can wait. He gets Lemo to hang out with him and Cheelai. He didn't have to do that. And granted, Lemo does provide delicious food for the god and is, all in all, a useful and respectful servant. But, Beerus doesn't try to threaten him to do the dishes or make him do stuff like a skivvy. He's not demanding. Instead, he allows Lemo to relax a little bit. Things can wait, he says. He can take his time. No rush. Beerus is actively showing compassion, empathy, and patience towards someone. When has he ever done that? What this shows is that Beerus has much more patience than we first thought. He can be nice to people. You don't have to be strong to impress him now. Just be a hard worker and respectful. Provide something. Just be a good egg and you'll do fine with him. It's almost like the movie is selling an idea to us. An idea for the future. That these characters, Beerus, Broly, Cheelai and Lemo, that is, may function as a set. Seeing Broly enjoying fighting now more than he did prior to Superhero, and him actively getting invested in the climactic duel between Goku and Vegeta on an emotional level, makes him closer to something that we have been thinking about for some time. This little tidbit is so important for Broly's future in the franchise because it gives him something to do. If he had remained opposed to fighting, that wasn't going to change. Only learning to control his power so he could live a normal life, it would have been a bad move on a marketing level. And also, what would you do with him? His character arc would be done. But now that you've introduced Broly quite masterfully, I will say, into the main timeline, you have to do something big with him that isn't following the same path as either Goku or Vegeta. It has to be unique. Well, his new home on Beerus' planet is a start, suggesting one thing going for him, that he might be destined to become Beerus' prize student. Masako, are you saying what I think you're saying? Yep, Broly's gonna be Beerus' candidate. He's finally got one! But why is this a surprise and yet not such a surprise? Well, this takes us to the next part of this discussion. Even if Alter Ego gets introduced into the anime, it will, it's popular even with the non-manga readers, Vegeta won't take the job of becoming the next destroyer. Despite that, let's be real here. No matter how much people yearn for the old Vegeta to return, become the next destroyer god, those days are gone. Come on. Vegeta is too involved and ingratiated with his family on Earth. There's no way he'd leave them behind. Broly, on the other hand, is a lot less complicated. A whole other kettle of space fish. Broly is a good candidate not just for his strength, but also his temperament when handled correctly. Not to mention the lack of baggage. He is a gentle soul at the best of times, but if taught correctly in the ways of the destroyers, he can also prove to be pretty just, fair, and him being simple and relatively naive and unblemished can be a great shot in the arm for a future as a GOD. Yes, I know he is an obvious fit for the gig, but to this being potentially realised in the actual publications and the actual lore, instead of our fanfictions and general fan speculation, it's a big step forward and a great use of this character. Instead of just shoehorning him in just to being yet another Saiyan doing exactly what Goku and Vegeta do, just more of it. But wait, Masako, what about Cheelai and Lemo? They're not destined to be destroyers. They'll age and die eventually and Broly will be sad. Broly won't tolerate that at all, since they are his closest friends, and only closest friends, intrinsic for his continued good boy nature. If he lost them, who knows what he might do? Oh yeah, that's easy. I'm pretty sure that Whis would be able to prolong Cheelai's, Lemo's and Broly's lives so they could form a posse for the God of Destruction going forward. They don't have to rush thanks to the rigors of aging. Can Whis do that, I hear you ask? Of course he can. He's an angel. Whis has been deliberately written, as I've stated many times by now, and I find quite genius, to be able to do anything the writers can think of, get themselves out of any corner. He and his power set have been kept vague so that people won't question his level of OP-ness too much. Besides, if he can grant Freeza life again just like that, he can surely extend a currently living individual for as long as necessary. And in a healthy capacity, yeah? Another thing that is going for this train of thought is that Beerus' place as their base just makes more sense going forward. Yes, Vampa was fun while it was fresh and new to us in the Broly movie, but in reality, it's not practical. The planet is a little bit dull. It doesn't really offer anything new. We know what its deal is. It's a barren yellow world with bugs and giant beasties on it, with little else going for it, serving a purpose meaning that Broly was not found by the Freezer Force and he could grow up to what we see today. It served its purpose, and the more practical option for Broly and pals is for him to now shack up on Beerus' world. I'm sure he has the room for them. And having those characters around the cat makes things just more interesting, and honestly, lively. We know that Beerus likes to sleep a lot and he gets angry because he doesn't get the chance to. He hasn't done so as much lately. Simply because there's been so much going on lately that has kept him from resorting to doing so. He's not bored. Things being a GOD can be pretty dull on the whole over a period of millennia, but when you've got Goku and his goons just doing stuff across the universe, sometimes for your benefit, it's the perfect catnip. Also, I think Whis would be happy to have Lemo around, just because of the good food that he could provide them all. And he did have some fun dancing with Broly in his movie. He found them to be quite compelling when he was buying the Dragon Team some time. Now, this isn't a new idea by any means, but those brief scenes in Superhero have sold this idea to us even more, really giving it some more legs to stand on. All by showing us that Beerus doesn't mind having these characters around. He is genuinely pleased to have them there and not being begrudgingly happy just because he has to. Like he has to accept this because it's convenient or something, or the others might get mad. Maybe not so much with Broly to some extent right now, since he isn't as obviously useful yet, but that will come in time. This gives us a good opportunity to do something more with the character, now that he is willing to explore his power, and perhaps show some more of his personality. Now he's actually got the confidence in himself. The only other viable option for Broly in Dragon Ball's future would be that he would simply lay low somewhere, probably Vampa, avoiding Frieza's detection, living a quiet and peaceful life. And that's it. Granted, this would be healthy for the character, but remember, we have to tell a story. And on a creative level, it's kind of closed-minded. Broly can learn to love himself in a more impactful way, surely? And do you honestly think that the Dragon Room's going to be leaving that narrative chutzpah and that promotional tool on the table, just on a random planet somewhere never to be seen again? Come on, man. Broly being Beerus' protege is a good way to tie up loose ends for multiple characters, not just the big boy, which is kind of necessary in a way. We cannot be grateful enough just how much stuff Superhero has pushed forward in terms of even the shortest of scenes. Every scene in that movie counted for something. It didn't feel like dead air to us or fluff, just to pad out some time to get to an hour and 40 minutes. Because remember, Toriyama's original draft for the Broly script was 3 hours. I'm pretty sure that Superhero was a longer script too. They had to cut it down. Stuff like this whole thing with Broly or Vegeta finally winning and even match with Goku, no power-ups getting in the way, it really actually throws something into sheer relief. We think about how frustrating the manga has been for many of us with its overly cautious approach in regard to its development or backtracking on really cool stuff that it actually did introduce. Vegeta's arcs coming to mind. And then you stack it up with the little and yet meaningful gestures that Superhero did accomplish, changing the status quo. What's going on with the manga? Put simply, the movie showed up the manga big time. I don't know how Toyotaro can recover from this, especially since Toriyama came up with the basic premise for the movie too, and yet did the same thing for the manga. Did he set up Toyotaro to fail? Do the people even care about the manga being good so long as it's out? Weird. But yes, a few minutes worth of tiny scenes have brought multiple characters together and slightly pushed them forward, giving us more to work with and more scope. Now there is a possibility that we are just looking way too much into this whole shindig, that Broly won't even be considered for the job as Beerus' candidate. It is possible, yes, but modern Dragon Ball is opening up more plot threads to us. It's changing the iconography. And a plot thread that originally opened up the Super era, remember, was Beerus' dream of the Super Saiyan God, and Whis' desire to find a future replacement for the God, and not finding it in either Goku or Vegeta, but nevertheless training with them anyway. Like it or not, Whis and Beerus have changed since interacting with these mortals in Battle of Gods, and Broly's potential works unlike no one else's, and his destructive tendencies, if brought under control, could work miracles for Universe 7 after training with Beerus and his angel, taking it seriously. If there is a series coming back in 2023, we do expect to see those interactions pop up again from time to time, and it's practically confirmed that the next movie will continue to tell us Broly's story. What will be Freeza's role in all of this? After all, he was the one to get Broly on this path in the first place. And seeing that he is the other often cited candidate for the next destroyer of Universe 7, things might be pretty spicy. Maybe the two will compete with one another for Beerus' attention. Or maybe we'll see Cooler showing up after all. The truth is that we don't know. But for now, one thing is for certain. Broly's future is tied to Beerus, and we cannot wait to see more. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!